Welcome back to the Disruptive Dialogue, where we foster conversations that innovate change. I'm your host, Thomas Cotton. Over the last few weeks, if you've been rocking with us, you've heard a lot of the topics we covered. We talked about things from back in the days, to trauma, to oppression, to even rap music, how it influenced us. Last week, I made a comment at the end of our show, and I really want us to really think about this. What if gangs were the solution to building our communities? What if they were? And a lot of times we can throw these theories out and we can throw these ideas out that what if this can change and if we did this and if we did that. But the reality is there is a system and a structure in place within gangs that is powerful. It creates family. It creates loyalty. It creates people who want to be together to work for a common good. And in those ways of thinking about gangs, we can see that that system, if it had the right tools, can make the right changes. It has the bodies that are necessary. It just needs the education to elevate and help them move and promote forward. It needs systems that help them to see a different way to access finances, to access jobs that can really sustain life, to access a common good. And so one of the things that we have to look at is, why were gangs formed in the first place? There's a lot of theories out there. It can go around protection. It can go around helping people within the neighborhood. It can be so many different other things, just the history of it. And where did they go wrong, if that's the case? If gangs now are about violence, have they always been that way? And if the answer is no, they haven't always been about violence, can we get back to the roots? Can we get back to the roots in the heart of people? Because one of the things I do know, whether or not gangs were all about violence in the beginning or not, people haven't always been about violence. People haven't wanted to live their life in a way where violence is the way they engage situations and circumstances. They don't want to be the ones that, I grew up with this dude that lives 2 blocks down the street, and now we're separated because we're a part of 2 different neighborhoods. I don't know many people who want to be like that. Me, growing up in Southern California, California's home, especially LA, is home to the largest population of gangs in America. And when we look at what they do, to me, there's this level of pride that they have. And we got to realize that there's a reason for that. It's not something to try to tear down from a person. That's their identity. So trying to tear this down tears their identity down. And so we're not trying to tear people down who already had a lot of challenges in life, and they're just trying to find a way to overcome them. I mean, think about it. People who are involved in this lifestyle are willing to lose their life to try to get ahead, to try to move forward. I don't care if you don't agree with their lifestyle. I don't care if you don't agree with how they got to where they're at. The thing is, this is where they're at. What if we just take where they're at and be honest and be real about this situation and now begin to say, hey, there's a better way. But not just talk about it, be about it. Not to a point where we're trying to tear people down, but we're trying to build them up. See, my first podcast in this series, I shared this. I'm passionate about my people. And I'm passionate about them because they're not just people out there trying to do the most harm. They're not people that don't have a heart or a soul. If you've ever sat down and talked to people from this lifestyle, from the neighborhoods and from all over the place and connected with them, you will hear that they have a heart that beats just like you. And one of the things that I've been fortunate enough to do is talk to people who are involved in gangs from all over this country, from other countries, from mafia gangs down to street level gangs, from my hometown, from Los Angeles to the Bay Area, Mexican gangs, white gangs, and just sit down and had conversations with them. And one of the things I found out that's true, it's hard being in a gang because you're so loyal to the people that you're around. But there's also another place and space that you want to be. You want to be loyal to family. You want to be able to take care of things. You want to be able to elevate and feel a sense of pride in your life. No one wants to die early. No one wants to go to prison. There's none of these things that are present within the people that I talk to that have been a part of this lifestyle. But unfortunately, a lot of times when they make this choice, it's hard to recover from because those choices have consequences, and sometimes the consequences come really fast. And so we're not trying to sit back and say, you know what, let's continue this same cycle that we've always saw, that when you get involved with the gang, there's no way out of it. There is a way out, but it's not by leaving, because even in leaving, there's a threat there. Maybe it's in developing. Maybe it's in growing. Maybe it's in how we begin to move things forward. We cannot continue things the way they've been because it doesn't work. We got years of proof of that. We don't need someone to come in and do research. We don't need all these researchers to come in and say, well, here's what I think the problem is, or here's what I think the problem is. We got an army of people who've been raised in this situation, and they've come out of it and they've turned things around, and now they're doing big things. They're doing the most good. And these individuals understand what it's like to come up in that space and then move forward. I am one of those individuals. I am one of those people that grew up in a way where I had hope that this system would allow me to flourish and thrive and do the things that I want to do. But in reality, I was still a victim of my own society, my own environment, because these are the things I've been exposed to. It's not like I saw my first drug deal too far away from my family. My family was the reason why I saw the first drug deal, and that's a whole other story, so don't read too far into it. But the first drug deal I ever saw came from someone right in my family. And so what I want us to understand is there are ways that we can see money moving and finances moving within the community. And usually it is drug dealing. In our last podcast, we heard about where we prey on those people in our community. Yeah, as a drug dealer, I didn't care who you were. If you have money and you want to buy my drugs, so be it. Come get this. Better to get it from family than get it from someone else. And I realized as I got more mature how wrong that was. There's a lot that I recognize that I could have did better. But the reality is, while I was in it and while I was there was no other way. This is just the way life is. And so as we begin to look at what I'm saying here, that what if gangs were the solution to building communities, we got to realize that there's a lot of trauma. So it's going to take a lot of effort with dealing with trauma. We got to realize there's a lot of oppressive spirits and situations and systems. We got to deal with that. We got to realize that the hope of getting to another level, we have to deal with that. And then also the family aspect. We have to deal with that. So I say this often, and the reason why I've done the work the way I've done it over the last 27 years, almost 28 years, is because I realize people are the most important part of the process. If you can help the person change and you can equip the person, they can make the better decision. And hopefully, when they're making better decisions, they decide to turn around and do the same for someone else. Now, back in the days, there's this each one, teach one mentality, which is good. Like each one, reach one, each one, teach one, however you're going to say it. That's good. It's always good to give back. It's always good to hopefully, like if I teach you, you teach someone else, right? But what if we had an each one, teach 100 mentality? I mean, the way we're looking at life right now, it's exponentially growing in the wrong way. So in order to turn it around, we're going to have to exponentially grow in the other way. So let's say in my life, I've been able to reach thousands of people since the time I've been involved with gangs, with drug selling, with prison and everything else. I've been able to reach thousands of people. So to me, it sounds like it's an easy task, but what if we teach everybody that as you learn, you make sure you engage at least 100 people in your lifetime? And let's just say out of that 100, 5 of those end up catching fire. And they do the same thing. They reach 100, so they're reaching 500 more now. And they only reach 5 out of each, that's 25, but that 25 goes out and does the same thing. Now you can see how that exponentially grows and how we can change systems in society by exponential growth of the people. Yes, we'll still have people out there working on the systems that are jacked up, and the legal systems, the social systems, the governmental systems. We'll still have people who are attacking that. But you can change all of that, and if the people don't change, then everything continues to remain the same. So we can't forget about the people that are in this process, but we also have to look at the strength. It's funny because I think it was maybe the second podcast or the third one when we talked about gangster rap, I used a lyric or a line from one of NWA's songs. You're about to witness the strength of street knowledge. Street knowledge is highly important. I ask people this all the time in the classes that I teach and all the people I get a chance to interact with. I ask them this question: would you rather learn from people who have book knowledge or experience? Book knowledge or experience? And 99.9% of the people say experience. Well, one of the things that the people that we're talking about that are part of these gangs, that are part of these new systems that we can change, what they have is a lot of experience, and they know what they don't want, and they know what they do want. And it's up to us to help them to create a new pathway toward that. So when we think about who can make the change that we really want to see, who can stop the violence that we really see out there and we know that this violence has to be changed, it's those people who are in the middle of it, those people with the experience. But it takes people with book knowledge. Now, I have street experience, and that's carried me a long time. From my street experience and from all my wisdom and everything that I gained by going through all that I had to go through, it helped me get to a point right now where, yeah, that was great. But last year I went back and got my master's degree, and the level of interaction between my street knowledge and my book knowledge, that level of interaction takes it to a whole other level. And now I'm ready to really launch out this movement. There's a new movement that is coming down the pathway because, to me, the change is always within the people. We can't expect a system that's oppressed people for so long to be the solution to the problem. But we'll look to that system to be the solution to the problem when the people that are sitting right here experiencing this need something. They need something, and they don't need to wait until a whole system turns around. We have to be more agile in that turnaround. We can't continue to do it the long way of doing research and finding out what's the problem, and then because now we have this evidence base of this is the problem, now we can fund those programs that do evidence-based programming. Well, that's easy to say, hey, I got this number, I got this number, I got this person, and they went through this program and tell a few stories and get the funding again and over again. If that system worked, then we would start seeing things turning around. We see recidivism. We'll see prison numbers turning around. And I have my own reason why recidivism rates are lower now and prison rates seem to be lower, but it's not. That's just smoke and mirrors. And so, to me, there are a lot of different ways that we can change this. And again, it's not just through what I know, what I've experienced, but it's through research also. So these are informed things that I'm saying to you. But the one thing that's a challenge to us is to find out if the very people who are involved with the process of being oppressed can turn around and make the biggest differences that we're looking for. If we're looking for peace, if we're looking for guidance, if we're looking for a transformation in our neighborhoods, could it be the very small groups that are out there in these neighborhoods, they're the ones that can turn it around? Because think about this. In our impoverished neighborhoods or underserved neighborhoods, whatever you want to call them, there's a level there's a number of people who are involved with the gang. That gang is not the whole community, but they influence the whole community. So what if that small number of people that influences this whole community in the way that harms it can be the same number of people that turns around and helps it. Now, I'm not foolish enough to believe that everybody will be down with something that I'm saying like this. I know that. But I've come in contact with enough people in my life to know that not everybody wants to fall into that same cycle of incarceration and death and losing their family. And you know, one of the hardest things to see is when a person's inside of prison and they lose a family member on the outside and they can't do nothing about it. They can't go see them, they can't attend the funeral, they can't do anything about it. How many people get out of prison and their family structure is just tattered? How many people have kids and they go to prison and their kids are 5 or 6 years old and you get 15 years in prison, you get out, by the time you're getting out, your family member's going in because you've been gone so long. That cycle is not working. But one of the things I do know is family's family. So if you're a part of a gang, if you're a part of something, and there's this loyalty that you have, that's who you are. I'm not trying to tear you away from that, but there's a better way. And there's a way that we can begin to do this. We got to create a movement. We got to be intentional about what we're going to do moving forward. And I'm going to tell you something. God has given me something that I think will help us all move forward. For the last 13 years, I've been teaching a curriculum I wrote. I'm not a scholar. I'm not somebody who is super smart, but this curriculum was something that I wrote because I can see the need. If you see the need, meet the need. And I wrote this curriculum, and I've taught almost 4,000 people in this curriculum. And from a standpoint of not a scholar, I don't know how to get the evidence base. I don't know how to get any of that. But what I do know is the people who walk out of this class are way better than when they first started. Matter of fact, my partners trust this curriculum to be taught first in any program that they have because the outcomes of their program is so much better because the people are more engaged into their program. The enlightenment that the participants receive from being in this curriculum is way above that of what they've ever experienced in any class that they've gone through. That's the feedback I get, and it shows. So now what we need to do is, not only do we have this, we need to be able to create a system that embraces them on the backside. And not only that, it makes bridges to the right structures and systems that we're looking for. So stay tuned because this movement, I'm about to introduce it. It's coming up in my next episode. And when we get to that next episode, I'm going to share something. The disruptive dialogue, that name is going to shift. The name of the curriculum that I have, Rethink Life, that name is going to shift. Matter of fact, everything is going to shift toward this movement. And the reason why it's going to shift toward this movement is because the solution is in the problems we see. The people in the problem are always closest to the solution. So stay tuned.